Hello, this is Larry Leathers, and this is Code Courageous. And here, what we're trying to do is to help you guys build your code courage. Now, this is a Ruby exercise here. We're going to basically, within 15 minutes, figure out how we're going to take a string, and whenever we see successive characters that happen to be the same character, we get rid of both of them. In order for this to all make sense, you have to go through passes. So once you find it, then find an incident, then you basically start all over again going from left to right. And always go from left to right, finding these successive characters or same characters. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set this timer to 15 minutes, and then we're going to start this. Okay, so the first thing that we do is we know that it's called same character reduce. So def, okay, same character reduce, and we know it's a string that we're putting in there. Okay. Also, we know that this has to end somewhere, so put that in there. Now there are gonna be some things we'll have to figure out along the way. I don't know exactly how I'm going to solve this right now, so we're just going to start off with, first of all, the result is going to be a string. So we can say result equals maybe something like this, an empty string or something. It might, I don't know exactly yet, but we're moving this thing along. Next thing we're going to do is take string, and we need to take a look at successive characters. So the first thing that we want to do is say each char, right? Because we want to break this string up into characters. We want to analyze it that way. So we could say this do, and then we use this pipe operator, and we in there we say, let's say char. Okay. Okay, so now let's start the magic. All right, so the issue now is we actually do need index. So each char and say with index. And then go char comma idx. Okay, next. We need to now see what happens when with trials. So we're going to go, let's see, if, say char, let's see, idx. Let's say a char, no, that would be more like if string idx equals string idx +1 or something like that. Okay, so I think what we want to do is we want to go into it further than to go back. So I think what I like to do is say something like if string idx is equal to string idx -1 or something like that. We need something that means let's try a count of some sort, an index. Let's try an index instead of doing the enumeration. So index equals let's say 1 or something like that to start off, and then we're going to do a while loop instead here. So this is what I'm saying. It's like sometimes you don't know what you're going to do. So while. Okay, index is a less than. It has to be. We need a trial. some kind of a trial string that we're working on. So we say something like work, yeah, work array. That sounds good. Something like work array, a work string. Let's try work string. And okay, and then the work string is equal to string. That's how it's initialized. We need to do something like that. Stop. Okay, and then what we want to do here, okay, is talk about while index is less than work string length. Now, see, the point here is work string is going to constantly be getting smaller as we continue to find successive characters. Two successive characters that are the same, it just gets smaller and smaller, and that's how we manage our loop such that we can finally end it. All right, so generally speaking, this is making sense. Okay, so what we want to do is instead of acting on the string, we need to act on work string. So let's do that, work string. And then let's do work string. Okay, so if a work string of the it's not IDX, it's index now. Okay, let's go index. All right. Okay. If work string index is equal to work string index minus 1, then we have, okay, that's why I said index 1, because what we want to have happen is the first one is the first element of an array is going to be index 0. That's why we want to make sure that we don't have a situation where it's -1, because if it sees -1, it means let's take a look. Let's query the expression and provide the entire array. That's what it's going to do. So that's sort of like this built-in thing with Ruby. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to engage that. So as long as our index is positive or non-negative, then it'll work pretty much the way we want to in this way. So if work string, then what we want to do, okay, is we want to say something like, all right, work string index is equal to work string index minus 1. We want to get rid of those. So that means what? Well, we usually will have something before the index and something after the index. So what we want to do is take a look at work string, and we have the Ruby. See, this whole issue of range, right? We can actually take pieces out of our array and do what we like to do with it. So in this case, I want to get access to 0 to index. Or index minus 1. Let's see, what do I want to, why am I saying that? Actually, that's why we should do it, to make this a little easier in terms of the way it looks. Let's just do it like this. It doesn't really matter, but it does. All right, so let's say to index minus 2. Okay, because that's index minus 2 is before index minus 1. And so 0 to that, we want that. Plus, we want work string index plus 1 to negative 1. Okay. All right. So if it makes you feel good, then you could do something like this. Put in there like that. This is something like that maybe. Not necessary, but okay. 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 So this means it's going to give us the elements of the array. We could turn a string and we can access elements of the string as an array. So that's what we're going to do here. From 0 to the leftmost element before it gets to the double one. And then this is the string at the right-hand side, accessing the element that is the rightmost of that to the end of the array from left to right. When we add, so if we say work string equals this, then this is the reduced string. And as you can see, this is now 2 less than what it was up there if this were the case. Okay, so there's another thing that has to happen. We actually are going to have to, let's see, we're going to have to, remember I said we're going to go through this in passes? We have to go through this in passes, meaning that since we found this, this double and we got rid of it, we now have to start looking from left to right again. So we should go index equals like, maybe it's 1 or so. So we do it again. No, index equals 1. Yeah. If it's 1, then we're going through that process again. We go end. Okay. And the next thing we want to do is, okay, so while index is less than workstring.length, right? If this is the case, we want this to happen. Okay, now what happens when index minus 2? So what if this is, what happens in this case where index is 1? That means this goes from 0 to negative 1. And then we're going to have this work string thing not working out right here. I'm telling you right now, this is not going to, it's going to give us what you would normally see when you see negative 1, which means 0 to the entire string. So we're going to get the entire work string for that case, and that's not what we're looking for. So this is going to be what we want when the index is greater. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to say, I'm going to copy this again. Okay, let me copy this. All right. So we're going to get rid of this because this is going to be, this is not going to help us here. Okay. Because all we want in a case like that, that means that it was we found the double at the very, very beginning of our string, and then we won't have anything to lop off because we already lopped it off and there's nothing at the left-hand side. So all we have is the right-hand side, and so this should work out. Now, in the case that it was further in, let's see what happens. So if, let's see, okay, okay, so this is where you're going to have some problems. You're going to have to try to figure out exactly how to hack this out so that it works right. This is okay, I believe. I think what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to increment the index, number one. So let's just do that to get that out of the way. So index plus equals 1. Okay. And so that allows us to be able to, in the end, exhaust the indices so that we can eventually get to this point where this while becomes false and we break out. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. All right, seems like our timer is done here. Yeah, this problem is going to take us a little bit longer than 15 minutes. All right, so especially when you're talking about it. All right, so the next thing that we have to do is, let's see, so that's managed, so we got that out of the way. This works out the way we want it to. It should. We wanted to, the index here has, you have to reinitialize it, as I'm saying. When you're going to go back over from left to right, you have to go back. Once you found a double, then you have to initialize it. All right, so what does that mean in this case? Well, that means the index, I guess, it would have to be 0, because then this would end up 2, and that's not what we want. So when it goes back up here, it'll be index equals 1. That brings us back to the starting off, whereas index, okay, 0 and 1. If 0 and 1, then we can continue. So that makes sense. If it's 1, it's definitely true that 2 will be from 2 to the end. That makes sense because 0 and 1 would be the first two indices of the array, first two indices of the array, which is a string in this case, but the first two indices of the string, if it's the case that you see a double at the beginning, that's what it would look like, and then the rest of the work string would be from index 2 on. So that works with this. That makes sense. Now what happens here? Okay, all right, so now we have to say what happens if the, let's see, we have to say and something. So and, let's see, index equals, index is, I guess, less than 2, or less than 1, less than 2. If index is less than 2, okay, so then that would be 1 and 0. So if it's 1, okay, what happens? Well, that's the thing. It's like the thing is that it is 1. It only when it's 2, then let's see what happens. I think it's and. This one is and index is greater. Okay, something like greater than 2 or something like that. Greater than equal to 2 or something. We're going to fix this in a moment. All right, so if the index, okay, so if the index is 2, what happens? Okay, so we have work string, this is 1, right? and 2. And then we have, but what happens, okay, that's why it has to be this one. So if index is greater than or equal to 2, once we're at 2, now we have 3 elements that we're dealing with at the leftmost indices of when we're trying to access our string using indices. It's 0, 1, and 2. But we're interested in when two things are two consecutive characters if they're the same, then we do something. So we will have a left-hand side if it's index 1 and 2. So the 0, 1, the 0 part, we could actually lop off, or not lop off, but that becomes our new left-hand work string here. So let's just do that. So if work string, okay, it's 2, so this becomes 2. Oh, it becomes 1, right? And this is 2. Then index is now 2, so the work string is now 0 here, and that's what we wanted. So that's that first element of our array. And if it's 2, that means 3 is the one that's on the other side. So it's now index 1 and 2, which we're taking out, and 3 to the end is what we're looking for, and that's exactly what we have here. Okay. Again, index equals 0 is what's going to take us back out. Once we've done this, once we found something, we have to reinitialize our index to 0. Okay, so that's the end of that part. Okay, and then let's see. We should be able to do something like end, right? And then we should say, be able to say return a work string. And then we should say end or something like that. So let me go back over here again. So we don't need results. No. So, and there may be some problems in here. That's why we're going to go through this again, because we may have some issues of a type inconsistency, and that's one of the biggest errors that you're going to find. So again, okay, so we call this method same_reduce. It takes in a string, and we're going to initialize this variable work string with the string that we get in. We're going to initialize a variable that we're using as an index, and we're going to call the first value 1, and then we have a while loop. And what we're going to try to do right now is remember what we're reducing this string. So we're using work string as the means through which we're going to go through successive processes where we're reducing it in the way that the instructions suggest, or what not suggest, but they tell us to do. Now, okay, index, let's see, because of the way that we're doing this, we are starting with an index of 1, but I think in this case it probably should be 0, so we fix that up. See what I'm saying? It's like we have to clean this up along the way because I didn't go through this process. And this is the first time we're going through the entire algorithm. Okay, so we begin with the index equals 0. And then the first thing we do is increase it when we get into the loop because we need this in order to drive our condition, that this thing ends. And then we're obviously constantly going through each pass, going through successive characters, comparing each of them to see whether or not these conditions arise. So the first one, again, we checked this already, so it doesn't make any sense to check this again. It makes sense. This makes sense as well. Okay. So that's the end of the while loop, right? And so again, we know that this, even if these things didn't happen, every time we go through, we increase the index. And so obviously this inequality is going to eventually become false and it will end. The other beautiful thing, of course, we see here is that, okay, we're constantly comparing with the real work string and we're checking only what we need to check. So this makes a lot of sense. All right. Let's see what else to do. We have to go and ensure that all of these are still strings, right? So this this is definitely going to return a Boolean, and no doubt about that. This has to return a string, but this will return a string because this is, first of all, how we get access to the range of the elements that are in an array. And we did that already. And we know that this is still a string, so work string should still be a string. If we do this, and we can add elements of a string together like this. So this is definitely a string. This is definitely a string. When you add them up as a string, this is still a string. At the end, it should give us a string, and then this should be it. So let me just now check this. Okay. All right, so I'm going to save this. Okay, and then I'm going to, this is called same Ruby, same char reduce RB. Okay, see what happens. Okay, there is a problem here. Okay, let's see what we have. The end is for that while. Let's return here. And for the def. Let me see what's going on here. Same syntax error unexpected at 19. Work string index and index. Okay, let's try this. Let's run it again. Okay. Syntax error unexpected 19. Let's see. Let me just go through all this because it could be something that was before. And it's funny that it's happening at 19. Okay, plus 1. Okay. You know what the problem is? It should be else. Yeah, else if. Anyway, it should be else if. And let's try that. I'm going to save this. Let's bring it up so we can see it. Okay, there you go. So see, this is what I'm saying. It's like all these little things matter. So anyway, I highly, highly recommend basically going through your code, making sure that things that you know that you would normally do, you should do. Please excuse that I didn't use an else here. And that's that.